Can you hear me out there?
No.
Where's Dick Lodge?
Right here.
Dick, why don't you pull your chair right Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the, and sisters of the Consular Corps, women, men, and may it please the court. There was this old couple, and they were fine health, and they'd been married for many, many years, but they became a little forgetful. And so they went to see the doctor, and the doctor examined them and gave them tests, and he said, you know, there's nothing really wrong with you, it's just that your memories are going a little bit. So I would suggest that when you need to remember something, write it down. So they said, okay, we'll do that. So that night they go home and they're sitting around watching TV, and the husband gets up and he says, I'm going out to the kitchen to get something. Can I get you something? She said, yes, I would. I'd like to have a bowl of ice cream, but you better write that down because you won't remember. He said, I got it, bowl of ice cream. She said, well, I'd like whipped cream on top of it as well. You better write that down. He said, I don't need to write that down. I can get ice cream and whipped cream. She said, but I'd like a maraschino cherry. They're in the refrigerator. Put that right on top. Please write that down because you won't remember. He said, believe me, I'm going to bring in just what you ordered. So he goes out in the kitchen. He's out there for 20 minutes. There's pots and pans, everything's going around. And he walks in and he said, here you are, babe. 2 eggs up and bacon. And she said, I knew you'd forget. He said, what did I forget? She said, where's my toast? There was an Aer Lingus flight, that's Irish Airlines, coming from Dublin to New York. And they got up, they took off, and they were out on the flight for not very long, and the stewardess came on and she says, now, ladies and gentlemen, she says, I'm very embarrassed to tell you now, we have 130 passengers on this flight, but she said, we've only 40 meals have been placed on her by some mistake, and she said, so I'm very sorry about that. So what we've decided to do is this, if you'll forego your meal so someone else can have the meal, you can drink free for the next 5 hours all the way over to New York. So that was fine, and about 90 minutes later, she comes back on. She said, ladies and gentlemen, it's the stewardess again. She said, if anybody would like to change their mind, she said, we still have 40 meals left. Helen and I, this was amazing. Last Saturday, we're at home working on a Christmas tree, and the doorbell rings. Guy comes to the door, and he said, I'm from Jehovah's Witness. I said, well, come on in. So we opened the door and then sit down in the living room, and I said, what do you want to talk about? And he says, I haven't got a clue. I never got this far before.
That's true. Nobody asked for
Helen and I went for our my 25th reunion from high school. And we were having a great time, and we're sitting there, and there was a woman sitting there over by herself, and she's just pouring drinks down left and right. And he said, do you see that woman drinking over there? And I said, I don't know. He said, she really drinks. I said, well, many years before I met you, I said, she and I were a thing. You know, we were dating a lot, and but I broke up with her, and I said, she started drinking. And Helen looks at me, she said, think she can celebrate this many years. There's this cop is driving down the street, and he pulls a car over for speeding. He approaches the car and he looks in the back seat, and there's knives and dirks and daggers and all kinds of weapons in there, and he said, hey, step out of the car, please. The guy says, what's up? He said, step out of the car. So he gets out of the car. He said, what are all those weapons back there? And the guy says, those are not weapons. He said, I'm a circus performer, and I juggle all that stuff in the thing. He said, well, let me see you do that then. So the guy's standing out there flipping spears and all that. And about that time, Pat and Mike had just got off the plane from Dublin, and they rented their car, and they're driving down the street, and I said, Jesus, Pat says to Mike, would you look at that? He said, the drink driving test in the States is severe. there was this trooper, and he was, you know, it was nearly midnight. And so he was doing his route, and he came up to what's well known as Lover's Lane, you know, when he thought, well, I'll just check in there and make sure nothing illicit's going on. And so he drives up there, and sure enough, there's a car parked up there. Dome light is on in the car. And so he parks his car, and he walks over, and he looks at the guy, and he's reading a magazine. He taps on the window, and he says, excuse me, sir, he says, what are you doing here? He said, well, officer, I'm reading a magazine. And he said, how about the girl in the back seat? What's she doing? He said, well, I believe she's filing her nails. And he said, son, you thinking, I haven't seen anything illicit here. He said, how old are you? He said, I'm 22. And he said, may I ask, how old is the girl? He said, she'll be 18 in 11 minutes. Finally, I'll leave you with this one, because this fella went to, he had a lot of money, so he managed to get himself a trip around the world, and he was in Rome, and he had a chance to meet the Pope. So he's in the Pope, and they're having a nice visit, and as he was exiting the room, he said, he sees this golden telephone there, and he says, well, Your Holiness, he said, do you mind telling me what that gold telephone is for? And the pontiff said, well, that's a direct line to heaven.
Great, thank you.
You can call God on that? He said, yes, I can. He said, how much does it cost? He said, it's $100,000 US to make a phone call. He said, well, my Holiness, and he left, he traveled around Europe for a while, and ended up in Ireland, where his family came from. And he went to this little village of Gweedore, out in the far western reaches of Ireland. And so he was dutifully calling on the pastor who had been there years before when his parents came over from Ireland. And he's talking with him, and he had a nice renewal of their old times, and he said, he noticed he's got a telephone there, gold telephone. He says, Father, he says, tell me, what is this gold telephone? He said, well, it's a direct line to God. He said, really? He said, how much does it cost? He said, to make a call. He said, €1. €1. He said, I was in Rome, and he said, it cost the Pope $100,000. He said, yeah, but you see from here, it's just a local call.